بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفس ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقوني يا أولي الألباب. Hajj is well-known months, so whoever has made Hajj obligatory upon himself therein, there is no sexual relations and no disobedience and no disputing during Hajj. And whatever good you do, Allah knows it. And take provisions, but indeed, the best provision is fear of Allah, and fear me, O you of understanding. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah khair for the Qiraat, Farhan. Welcome once again, everyone. We have come together this afternoon to join Strive UK's Thafakkur event, which are bi-monthly sessions that we hold to reflect on the Islamic way of life. The topic for today, as you know, is Hajj, the call of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Especially in the current situation with the pandemic, with the number of people performing Hajj reducing from the usual millions to a few thousands, it's become crucial that we remind ourselves and engage in conversations to reflect on the life of Prophet Ibrahim and Hajj itself, and keep this pillar of Islam alive in our hearts. And this is precisely what we are setting out to do today, inshallah. For this, we have a very prominent scholar, broadcaster, and author, Sheikh Ajmal Masroor. Allow me to quickly introduce our speaker. He is a member of the MCB, the Central Working Committee member of the Islamic Society of Britain. He is chairman and director of Communities in Action. He's also the chairman of Children Plus, a charity that focuses on providing humanitarian assistance to poverty-stricken children around the world. Some of you probably already know him as a presenter on various TV channels in the UK. On Channel 4, he presented a program called Make Me a Muslim and was also a part of a panel in a program called Sharia TV. He has also appeared in major news channels such as the BBC, the CNN, and many others as a commentator on social, political, and religious issues. Well, the session today is Sheikh Ajmal is going to speak roughly for 40 minutes, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. So please feel free to use the chat window to type any questions you may have during the talk, and we can address them during the Q&A, inshallah. Alternatively, you can also use the raise hand option during the Q&A session, and our host can unmute you, and you may ask your questions directly to the speaker. So we intend to keep this 40 minutes uninterrupted, inshallah. So without further ado, let's welcome Sheikh Ajmal to speak now.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب زدني علما رب زدني علما. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our program, or your program, in which I'm a guest. And inshallah, we hope and pray that we are able to together learn a lot. Inshallah, that's the plan. I can guarantee that you'll all learn. The learning comes from yourself. Understanding and wisdom is given by Allah. So we have made dua to Allah Azza wa Jal at the beginning of this program. Like Musa alayhi salam is made when he went to see Fir'aun, when he went to invite Fir'aun for the message and the mission that he was assigned to. That Allah gives us the strength to be able to understand, gives us openness of our hearts and our minds, takes away any impediment that we may have in our thoughts in processing our information as well as speaking. Inshallah. Brothers and sisters, let's begin. It's about, I don't want to talk about Hajj just per se, because you can talk about Hajj and you can hear about Hajj every day from, I suppose, by reading, by going on social media nowadays, by focusing on, by expanding your reading potential. You can find so much about Hajj, no issue at all. However, what I want to talk about is the story of Prophet Ibrahim and his life and how it relates to our modern world, that which we occupy and make the best of, inshallah. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, as a prophet of Allah, his story is not just limited to him being the Prophet of Allah, but his story is a story of faith and sacrifice. If you really focus on the life of Ibrahim, you will find nothing more prominent than the idea of faith and sacrifice. Subhanallah, brothers and sisters, Ibrahim's faith, it was so resounding and so powerful that Allah gave Sayyidina Ibrahim the accolade, the title, Khaleelullah, a friend of Allah. And what is it that made Ibrahim receive that title? What is it that made Ibrahim become Khaleelullah? A lot of us think if we go to Hajj, we connect with Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, we may also become Khaleelullah. It's not as simple. If you think Khaleelullah is attainable by merely attending Hajj, you need to think again. It's never been the case. Millions of people have gone to Hajj throughout the time that we have seen in our own lifetime, and people have gone to Hajj for years and years even before. Not everybody. Actually, nobody else has ever been given that title, Khaleelullah, and since, except Ibrahim. So what is it that made Ibrahim so unique that Allah gave him that title? To understand that, we have to understand his story. His story is about a story of endurance, in search for the truth. It is one of the greatest stories of faith, conviction, and total reliance on Allah. His life remains the universal hallmark of sacrifice for the truth. He embodied the innate human capacity to realize the truth. Most often Muslims associate Ibrahim alayhi with Hajj, because the origin of Hajj and the building of the Kaaba is, of course, directly related to him. Allah mentions it in the Quran. While this is an accurate depiction of Ibrahim, it is not the complete picture or portrayal of this great Prophet of Allah called Ibrahim alayhi and his life. And when we talk about Ibrahim, we should not talk about Ibrahim alayhi on his own, because he was not alone in this journey. He had two wives, Sarah and Hajar. But one more prominently appears in the story that we're going to tell, called Hajar. And we should not forget Ismail, his son, alayhi salam, also a prophet of Allah. All of them dedicated, completely devoted, and prepared to sacrifice and be sacrificed for the sake of Allah. Their dedication, their willingness to be sacrificed and sacrifice actually lies at the root of unlocking the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Did you know? Ismail equally plays a huge role in the entire life of Prophet Ibrahim. Without him, some of those sacrifices would not have been possible. So we need to look at their life together. It's a story that is interwoven between a father, a mother, a son, and two wives. But for today, we're going to be talking about one of his wives, Hajar. I'm going to tell you a story. Actually, I'm going to tell you their story and draw lessons from it and try and relate to Hajj as we see it. Let's go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam and his childhood a bit. Most of you know that he was born in a family where his father used to be not only an idol worshipper. Actually, his father wasn't a real idol worshipper. He was a militant atheist. He rejected any existence of God. He was a stonemason, and he used to build, actually carve out from the stories. He used to carve out from the stones, the gods and the goddesses, the statues his people would use and worship. So he was a capitalist, an atheist, as well as a show. He used to be, for public display, an idol worshipper. And Ibrahim was born in that family, a conflicted family between Ibrahim's values and the values of his father. My brothers and sisters, Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran very, very beautifully, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَامِلٍ. And indeed, long before we have vouchsafed unto Ibrahim his consciousness of what is right, and we were aware of what moved Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam. Surah 21 verse 51. Allah is saying a long time before, in other words, from the day Ibrahim was conscious, he was a boy, a young boy of curious mind. Allah had already given him a predisposition to knowing right and wrong. That's what he says. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَامِلِينَ. And it is that we long before gave Ibrahim consciousness of what is right and what is wrong. We learn two things from this verse. One is Ibrahim's curiosity is Allah's. Allah confirms his curiosity and his conscience and his ability to know right and wrong. But the second part of the same is that every child is born with this curiosity too. You and I are all born with this curiosity. Innate nature to know right and wrong. Innate nature to distinguish between that which is good and that which is evil. Innate nature that's in our DNA to accept Allah, the creator of this universe. Believe in one God. Believing in something more powerful than you and me around. It's innate in our nature. That's why children, when they're younger, they love superheroes. In fact, children love superheroes, we can understand. Adults love superheroes. In the Western world, globally, in films, in cartoons, in dramas, there is always a superhero. Superman, Iceman, Iron Man, Wonder Woman. There's so many superheroes. Spider-Man. People create superheroes. The one that can fight all the evil and stands for all the good. Innate nature of human, wanting to find something superior to them, who can sort out the world's problem. And this belief in Allah is part of and parcel of our DNA. It's ingrained in our conscience from the day we are born. And it is nurtured or it is destroyed by our families. Our families have an influence over the way our fitrah, our conscience, and our being, our character is designed and shaped. Look at Ibrahim. His father was an idol worshipper, a militant atheist, a capitalist by every definition you can think of. He was selling gods to the people of his society. How big a capitalist would you like? And yet Ibrahim wasn't corrupted by that particular influence from his father. So it is possible for children to safeguard themselves from the corrupting influences of their family. It is possible, but it is not always true for everybody. Sadly, the family's influence, 99% of the time, wins. In the case of Ibrahim, it didn't. Ibrahim was saved by Allah. Allah says, specifically, we vouchsafed, we gave a special dispensation to Ibrahim, special favors to Ibrahim so that he would not be corrupted by his father's way. He was so curious, he was asking questions about everything. His expression long before his expression of this expression of the Quran about him having this ability is actually indicative of Ibrahim's high level of personality, intellectual quality, progressive realization of Allah's almightiness and uniqueness and the necessity for us all to believe in the existence of a creator. Allah specifically mentions this about Ibrahim, despite the fact that his father was an atheist. Ibrahim was able to find this, and Allah had given him this favor. Part of those questionings Ibrahim was going through, asking himself, why am I here? Who created this universe? Where am I going? What's the purpose of my existence? Why do I see these planets, the moon, the stars? All of these, Ibrahim was curious. We're all curious, and we ask these questions. If you ask these questions, even if you don't, your mind will ask them. And when your mind begins to ask these questions, guess what happens? That curiosity that is roused, if you allow it to falter, if you allow it to disappear, then nothing good comes out of it. But if you allow that mind of yours that has raised the question in the first place to delve deeper into the true meaning, then you begin to understand, you begin to unravel the mysteries of the universe. Ibrahim was prepared to do that. So in the Quran, Allah says very beautifully, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَا يَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. And thus we gave Ibrahim his first insight into Allah's mighty dominion over the heavens and the earth. And this to the end that he might become one of those who are inwardly sure. Allah gave Ibrahim signs of Allah's universe in order for Ibrahim's inner being to be convinced of the truth. Remember, intellectually he was already there. He couldn't see the rationale behind what his father was doing, what his family was doing, what his society was doing, idol worshipping. He couldn't make sense of it. So intellectually he was already convinced. You remember the argument that he had with this tribe when all the idols were broken. It's called intellectual processing. He was challenging them, saying, those idols make no sense. Ibrahim was already intellectually convinced, but Allah wanted his inner being, his soul, his heart to be convinced. So Allah opened up the mysteries of this universe. So when he looked out, this is what he said. فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَآ كَوْكَبًا قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. Then when the night overshadowed him with darkness, he looked at the stars and he beheld, exclaiming, this is my sustainer, my Lord. But when it went down, he said, I do not love that which goes down. Ibrahim was not happy with what his brain was telling him, what his heart was telling him. Star may look nice from afar, but it goes down. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْقَمَرَ. And when he saw the moon, بَازِغًا, rising, قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. He said, this is my Lord. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَ قَالَ رَإِن لَمْ يَهْدِينِي رَبِّي لَأَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. He said to the moon that this is my Lord, but then when it went down, he said, indeed, if my God does not guide me, I will certainly be lost and become one of those people who have gone astray. All this speculation about star being the Lord, the moon being the Lord, these are all speculation. Ibrahim realized it already. And then he said, فَلَمَّا رَأَى الشَّمْسَ بَازِغَةً. When he saw the sun rising, قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي هَذَا أَكْبَرُ. He said, this is my Lord, this is the biggest one. فَلَمَّا أَفَلَتْ قَالَ يَا قَوْمِي إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تُشْرِكُونَ. And when it went down, he said, oh my people, behold, far from the truth, far from the truth that we are. If you ascribe divinity to these, this is all falsehood. There is no deity except Allah. We cannot associate any partners with him. Brothers and sisters, this is Ibrahim's journey. He was curious about the star, the moon, the sun, and he quickly concluded, nah, it can't be. Firstly, he blamed his brain. Secondly, he said, if Allah doesn't guide me, I'll be lost. And then he said to his people, oh my people, how silly can you be? You're worshipping these things. They're all celestial. They're nothing to do with a divine power that we should attribute to Allah. Allah is the one who created them. So he said next, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Behold, unto him who brought into being the heavens and the earth, I have turned my face, having turned away from all else that is false. I am not amongst those who ascribe divinity to anything, divinity to Allah, the Lord of the universe. I don't ascribe divinity to any but Allah. Allah is the only worthy of my worship. We all know this dua, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. If you don't know, learn it. It's very beautiful. We do this before we stand for prayers. We do this inside our prayers. إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ. I have turned my face. وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي. All my face into one direction. لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْض. Who has made the heavens and the earth. حَنِيفًا. And I've turned to Allah as opposed to anything else. وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. And I am not amongst those who associate partners with Allah. Surah Al-An'am, Surah 6, verse 75 to 79. What do we learn from these verses? I've already outlined that Ibrahim's curiosity was thus further fueled, and he fed his curiosity with signs that was around him. The moon, the star, the sun, and rationale that made him understand that these can't be divine. and his heart becoming content eventually when he said, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal arda hanifa wa ma ana min al-mushrikin. This is Ibrahim, my brothers and sisters. So when you go to Hajj, when anybody goes to Hajj, if they haven't gone through the same process of curiosity, of investigation, of questioning, of analysis, of rationale reasoning, and coming to a conclusion, and then submitting, surrendering themselves, they haven't done Hajj. Hajj isn't just a tick box exercise. Ibrahim's life isn't a tick box exercise. Ibrahim's life is a life of faith, life of sacrifice, life of devotion, life of complete reliance on Allah. So if you haven't been to Hajj this year because of COVID-19, and most likely 99% of the world's population didn't get the chance. A small band of people who live in Saudi Arabia perhaps had the chance. Ask yourself this question. Even if you had gone to Hajj, what would you have achieved? Would you have really understood life of Ibrahim in the right way? Would your faith have been the same as Ibrahim's? Could you have stood up against your own family if your family influence was atheistic, materialistic, secular, completely against any notion of believing in one God? Could you have stood up against a society that would be prepared to sweep you away from one Allah to multiplicity, idol worshipping, and all the other? Could you have stood up against the tests and the trials that Ibrahim had faced? And we're going to talk about that later on. Your journey through Hajj is all about realizing your faith is about a journey of conviction and journey of sacrifice. Ibrahim ﷺ was arguing with his people. He rejected the worship of all celestial bodies, which people venerated and worshipped, and therefore he asked them, وحاجه قومه قال أتحاجوني في الله وقد هداني ولا أخاف ما تشركون به إلا أن يشاء ربي شيئا وسع ربي كل شيء علما أفلا تتذكرون. And his people argued with him. He said, do you argue with me about God when it is he who has guided me? But I do not fear anything to which you ascribe divinity side by side to him, for no evil will befall me unless my sustainer so wills. All things the sustainer, my sustainer, embrace in his knowledge, and with his knowledge, will you not then keep in mind the truth? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ? Will you not then remember this? He told his people, you're arguing with me about God? Don't argue with me. God guided me. You are in the misguidance, O my people. God guided me and he's put me in the right way. Even if you were to wish evil for me, no evil can befall me, because Allah, my protector, my Lord, is fully aware of what's happening. And if he wishes ill for me, let it be. You cannot do anything about it. Allah knows what's happening to me. Will you not remember this truth? That's what he said to his people. It is in his childhood that Ibrahim argued with his father, who was not only an ordinary idol worshipper, but he totally rejected the existence of Allah. He used to make idols with his own hand. Ibrahim realized the fallacy of his father's idol worship and ideology, or idols themselves. He noticed that these idols could not eat, could not drink, could not talk, and could not even turn left, right, or center. And that's why he asked, how could these people believe in such nonsense who could not harm or benefit them? وإذ قال إبراهيم لأبيه آذر أتتخذ أصناما آلهة إني أراك وقومك في ضلال مبين. He says, and lo, thus Ibrahim spoke to his father Azar, and he said to his father, do you take idols for God? Verily I see them, and you and your people have completely gone astray. His father said, lo, Ibrahim actually said to his father, don't take idols for your God. Don't. He was asking. His father replied, behold, if you do this, I will punish you. We find another verse. Here is the verse. Behold, he said to his father, my father, why worship that which does not hear or see anything, cannot profit you in any way? O my father, to me has come knowledge which has not reached you. So follow me. I will guide you to a way that is even and straight. Oh my father, serve not shaitan, for shaitan is a rebel against Allah most gracious. Oh my father, I fear lest a penalty afflict you from the most gracious, so that you become shaitan's friend. His father replied, do you hate my gods, O Ibrahim? If you do so, and if you continue doing this and you don't stop, I will indeed stone you. Now get away from me. For a good long while, Ibrahim said to his father, O my father, peace be upon you. I will pray for you to my Lord for his forgiveness. And he is to me most gracious. And I will turn away from you, all of you, from those who invoke partners besides God. I will call on you, on my Lord, perhaps, but my prayer to my Lord, I shall not be unblessed. Surah Maryam, verse 42 to 48. This is a dialogue between Ibrahim and his father. His father says, oh Ibrahim, if you don't stop talking about this, I will stone you, I'll punish you. In other words, his father has become fed up with Ibrahim's constant talking of and criticizing of the idols, challenging of the idols, rationally, intellectually. His father wasn't having any of it. He said to his father, oh my father, why do you do something? Why do you worship these idols? It's at the back of what happened when they went to worship. They went to a festivity, and when they came back and they saw in their temples all the idols broken. And when they asked Ibrahim, did you do this? And he said, how did you see the idols? And when they described the state of the idols, he said, well, if you came into the temple and saw an axe hanging by the neck of the biggest idol, surely the big idol must have been angry with the little idol. And his people said, oh Ibrahim, are you mad? Why are you talking like this? These idols don't move. So he turned around to them and he said, oh my father, why do you worship such idols? Those who can't hear or see anything. What I learned from this, my brothers and sisters, is that your belief in Allah must be based on absolute conviction that Allah Almighty is the only power that is worthy of worship, your worship and reliance. Ibrahim knew this perfectly well. All the money that we worship, all the fame that we see people worship ego, people worship power, people worship all sorts of things. None of them are in any way, shape or form true. They're fake, they're fickle, and they're shallow. They don't last long. One day you're healthy, next day you could be unwell. I know this man who is one of the richest men amongst his people, owning at least 20 to 30 companies in Asia. And he was struck by coronavirus. All the directors of each and every company that was being run by people that he had appointed, they all came running to their boss when he was in the hospital. They did everything, threw money at him, threw money at the doctors. They flew in doctors from the best hospitals around the world to make sure that the man who owned all of those companies would not die from coronavirus. But a few days later, he passed away. Nothing could stop the marching of death. Unfortunately, when people forget and lose sight of this reality, they don't realize inevitable consequence. The inevitable consequence is misery. Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ made that clear to his father, but his father wasn't having it. Ibrahim was also arguing with skeptics who claimed to be God themselves, such as Nimrud, as we know. Nimrud, the king of Babylon, says, and Allah tells us in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, have you not turned your vision to those who disputed with Ibrahim about his Lord? Because Allah had granted him power. Ibrahim said, my Lord is he who gives life and death. So Nimrud said, I give life and I give death. Ibrahim said, but it is that Allah causes the sun to rise from the east. Do you then cause them to rise from the west? Thus was he confounded who in arrogance rejected the faith. Nor does Allah give guidance to people who are unjust. Ibrahim wasn't only arguing with his father, but he was arguing with the king of Babylon, challenging him on his fallacy that he was the God himself. Simple challenge. If you're truly powerful, why don't you alter the course of planetary system such that you see every day? The sun that rises from the east, stop that and make it rise from the west if you're so powerful. You can't. Ibrahim was mightily intellectual. What we learn from this, my brothers and sisters, is when Ibrahim was speaking to his father, he was firm but polite. He was respectful. He promised to pray for his father, ask Allah to forgive him. But he did not move away from the truth and the principle of one faith, principle of Allah. Hajj is that, my brothers and sisters. When you go to Hajj, you realize the truth of your faith through sacrifice, through patience, through endurance, and through experiencing. Hajj is supposed to be like that, the ultimate seal of your faith. People go to Hajj, get a box ticked, a title in front of their name, they're Al-Hajj. Very little transformation in their life. That is not Hajj. That is waste of time. That is nothing but waste of time. People do it for wrong reasons. Second thing we learn, that if you are going to talk to people around you, you better talk to people around you politely but firmly. Like Ibrahim did. He was arguing with his father, but politely and firmly. His father said, I'll stone you. In response, Ibrahim didn't fight back. He said, yes, my father, don't worry, I'll leave you alone, but I'll pray for you. I'll leave you alone. I'll pray for peace. Maybe Allah will guide you one day. He continued his effort nicely and politely with the people around. That's the second lesson we learn. So if you are inviting people to Islam, there is no Islam in your harsh words. There is no Islam in you arguing and shouting and screaming at people. There is no Islam in behaving ignorantly, behaving foolishly, and thinking you're going to make everybody Muslim. There is no Islam in that. And the third thing we learn is that when you speak to people, speak to them with wisdom, like Ibrahim did. Depth of wisdom. And scientific examples, like Ibrahim did, using the sun as an example. If you want to truly win the hearts and minds of people, it is not by belittling them that you win the hearts and minds of people. It is by exchanging with them at their level, but politely and compassionately. So we learn these things from the life of Ibrahim alayhi. Let's move on with some of the other aspects of Ibrahim's life that I think is important in this whole concept, whole discussion today. So Ibrahim alayhi became the Prophet of Allah. He migrated from his people and he traveled around the world. He had a wife called Sarah. And as he was traveling, he arrived at Egypt in his travel. In Egypt, he was faced with a terrible trouble. People of Egypt, the ruler of Egypt, took a liking of his wife, Sarah, and told the gods to bring Sarah to him. So the gods, by force, took her. Ibrahim made dua. He knew Allah will protect her. Actually, before I go and talk about this story, I'm going to digress a bit. I want to go back. So when Ibrahim had arguments with his people and his and skeptics, including the king, they realized Ibrahim is not going to stop. Nothing is going to stop Ibrahim. So they prepared a fire and they promised to burn Ibrahim unless he gave up, unless he compromised, unless he said, yes, I'm not going to do this anymore. So they prepared the fire, and the fire was so big that the people had never seen such a fire. They catapulted Ibrahim into the fire. As Ibrahim is falling in the fire, what does he say? What does he say? He could have said to the king, please forgive me, I will not do this. He could have compromised if he wanted to, but Ibrahim said, no. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. I rely fully on Allah, and Allah is enough for my protection. Allah is my wakil. Allah is my protector. No matter what you do, if Allah wills, it will happen. If Allah doesn't will, it won't happen. So you can prepare any fire you like. And as they throw him in, he says, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Remember this dua. I rely on Allah. I rely completely on Allah. I leave my affairs on Allah. And Allah is my protector. Allah is sufficient as my protector. So when Ibrahim had landed in the fire, in the thick of it, you'd have imagined that he would be burned to ashes instantly. But no, that's not what happened. Allah responded to dua of Ibrahim. Ibrahim said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allah responded by saying, Ya naru kuni barda wa salamun ala Ibrahim. O fire, be cool and gentle upon Ibrahim today. Allah changed the nature of fire, my brothers and sisters. Nature of fire doesn't change. You put your hand in a burning fire, you'll burn. Nothing can be protected from the burning fire. But yet Ibrahim alayhi when was thrown in the fire, he did not burn. He came out unscathed. This is a fabulous story of showing how Ibrahim was prepared to be sacrificed, made the ultimate sacrifice, because he knew the truth. If you truly know the truth, if you really know the truth, you will not be deterred by the threat of punishment. Because if you believe Allah has destined for you better things, no matter what comes in your way, you will accept it. When you go to Hajj, another declaration of your belief, an absolute belief in Allah. You believe in the goodness and badness of your destiny. Whatever is to happen will happen. Like Ibrahim alayhi did. And Allah looked after him. Thrown in the middle of the fire, and yet nothing happened to him. He walked away unscathed. When Ibrahim alayhi then left with his wife, Sarah, and traveled different parts of the world, inviting people to the path of Allah, and I was telling you earlier about Egypt, King of Egypt liked Sarah, and Ibrahim said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel again. Allah is my protector, He's my supporter. What can you do against the king? So they took his wife, but his wife was equally a pious woman. When the king came to her, she made a dua, and the king became paralyzed. They could not move. When the king became paralyzed, he realized something powerful is going on here. This is not ordinary. So Sarah said to him, if you promise not to do any harm to me and let me go, I will make dua and Allah will unfreeze you. He made a promise, and Sarah made the dua, and he was unfrozen. Allah protected her. She left. But the king then said to his guards, what kind of woman did you bring in front of me? In fact, it's not a woman, it's a devil. Get her out of here and give her that Egyptian girl I have as an assistant. Let her go. So Sarah was given a gift, an Egyptian girl called Hajra. Ibrahim, Sarah and Hajra left, and in their journey, eventually Sarah said to Ibrahim, oh Ibrahim, we don't have any children. We've been trying for a child all our life. You are more than 80 years old now. Why don't you ask Allah for help and marry this girl called Hajra? Ibrahim alayhi married her. And very soon Allah gave them good news that they are going to have a child. And the child was born called Ismail. Allah Azza wa Jal ordered Ibrahim alayhi very quickly with newborn baby Ismail and his mother Hajra that he should take them and abandon them in the middle of nowhere. Another test for Ibrahim. And Ibrahim accepted the test. Didn't ask questions. He told his wife that they should get on, and they started. They journeyed all the way to Mecca, a barren land with nothing in there. When Ibrahim alayhi came, he left Hajra and Ismail, baby Ismail, with a small bag full of dates and a small skin bag with water. When Hajra said to Ibrahim, oh Ibrahim, where are you going? Ibrahim was walking away. She started walking with him. Eventually she said, is this from Allah? Is this an order from Allah, Ibrahim? Ibrahim said, yes. And Hajra believed in Ibrahim as a prophet of Allah. She knew exactly what Ibrahim's mission was. So she said, if Allah has ordered you to do so, Allah will not abandon us. Allah will protect us. It is like Ismail's mother, Hajra, Ibrahim's wife, Hajra, said the same thing. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is my sufficient. I rely on Allah. Allah is sufficient for my protection. And exactly that's what happened. Ibrahim left them. And we know the story of Zamzam, the water that Allah had sent, enabled by sending angel to dig the water well or the water fountain that gushed out of the feet of Ismail, known as Zamzam. Another sacrifice. Ibrahim was prepared to sacrifice his wife and his newborn baby because Allah had asked him to do so without question. And his wife was willing to be sacrificed. She said, no problem. If Allah wants it, I'm happy, O Ibrahim. Civilization was started by Hajra and Ismail in the middle of nowhere because they were prepared to be sacrificed. They gave whatever they could for the sake of Allah. Move on quickly to the last part of what I want to talk about. Ibrahim alayhi salam had left Hajra and Ismail And Hajar and Ismail were living there. And as we know, other tribes of localities saw water and they came and joined them. And then Ibrahim ﷺ came back to be with his family again. And another story that we learn from the Quran is here. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانظُرْ ماذا تَرَى قال يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. And one day when the child had become old enough to share in his father's endeavor, the father said, "Oh, my dear son, I have seen in my dream that I should sacrifice you. Consider then, what is your view, O Ismail?" Ismail turned around and said, "Oh, my father, do as you have been ordered to do. You will find me amongst those, if Allah is willing, amongst those people who are patient in adversity." Ismail knew his father was a prophet. And he knew his father's dream was not a dream, even though Ismail was very young. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ, when he reached puberty, this is what it says. When he arrived at the age of puberty, how old would he have been? 12 maximum. And yet he knew profoundly the message his father was giving. That his father was a prophet, and prophets' words are not mere words. Prophets' dreams are not mere dreams, they're orders. So he said, "Oh, my father, you say it's a dream, I say it's an order. Go ahead and sacrifice me." فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ, but as soon as the two had surrendered themselves to what Allah had asked them to do, and Ibrahim had laid down Ismail on his face, وَنَادَيْنَاهُ أَنْ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ, and we called upon Ibrahim saying, "O Ibrahim, قَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا إِنَّا كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ." You have already fulfilled the purpose of that dream, vision, O Ibrahim. Thus Allah rewards those who do good. We find this in Surah As-Saffat, Surah 37, verse 102 to 105. Ibrahim was prepared to sacrifice his son, and his son was prepared to be sacrificed without question. What an amazing father and son. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal called Ibrahim Khaleelullah. When you go to Mecca, my brothers and sisters, for Hajj, we don't even realize an animal has been sacrificed in our name because we pay our Hajj organizers who carry out the sacrifice. We don't really feel it. Hajj has become 5-star Hajj nowadays. Skyscrapers, Las Vegas style buildings all around us. We walk through the highways, or we travel in air-conditioned coaches. We live in luxury hotels, 5-star hotels, and this, that, and the other. Hajj is no longer a journey of endurance. It's no longer a journey of patience. It's no longer a journey of sacrifice. Yes, even within the modern context, there is endurance and there is sacrifice. But compared to what it was, it's absolutely minuscule. So I want to bring the conversation together. Hajj, yes, you may have missed this year. And if you have, may Allah accept your Hajj. But remember who built the house of Allah, Ibrahim. Who was with him? Ismail. And what did they do? They sacrificed. They were prepared to be sacrificed. They gave up anything and everything that Allah asked them to give up without questioning. If you want to become Khalil of Allah, you have to be prepared to do the same. Not just attend Hajj, but be prepared to do the same. When Ibrahim ﷺ had laid down the foundation, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, when they raised their hands to the skies and said, "Ya Allah, accept that what we have made for you," Allah Azza wa Jalla accepted their dua. They accepted their dua. Once they had completed it, Allah said to Ibrahim, "Oh Ibrahim, now go and invite people of the world. Invite people of the world." So Ibrahim stood up and said, "O mankind, your Lord has established a house, so come to pilgrimage." The mountains lowered themselves so that the voice of Ibrahim could travel to all regions of the world. The trees and the forests opened up so that humanity could hear his call forever. Until the day of judgment, Allah says in the Quran, they will come to you, O Ibrahim, or they will come to this on foot and mounted on all types of stead for their journey. camels, horses, cars, planes, ships, lean on account of their journey through deep and distant mountain highways. They will come, and they will come until the end of time. My brothers and sisters, Allah Azza wa Jalla accepted Ibrahim's dua. Allah gave him the title Khaleelullah. Are you going to do something to become Khaleelullah? In other words, friends of Allah. Let's take away the notion that Ibrahim is the only one who could be Khaleelullah. Yes, Allah gave him that title, but there is nothing wrong with us wanting to become friend of Allah. To become friend of Allah, you have to have absolute faith in Him. Absolute faith. To become friend of Allah, you have to be prepared to stand for your faith, no matter what happens, without compromising, without giving it up. Even when you're pushed, like Ibrahim was thrown in the fire, didn't give it up. You have to be prepared to sacrifice. Ibrahim gave all he could. He was prepared to sacrifice everything. And Allah at every moment in time elevated him further and further and further. Some of you may ask this question, what was the need of it all? But my brothers and sisters, if there is a job and that job is a dream job for you, and you wanted to apply, and this dream job was also a dream job for hundreds of other people. A company, if they wanted to employ one person because that's all they have, one vacancy, how do they decide who to choose amongst thousands of applicants? That you have to go through tests, you have to go through tests, exams, until the one who is most befitting, the one who's proven, the one who's got a track record, the one who is truly committed and can demonstrate their commitment through their action, through their words, and through the tests and trials, gets the job. If you want to be friend of Allah, you have to be prepared for the sacrifice. You have to be prepared for tests and trials. May Allah make us ready for such sacrifice. May Allah make us the best of people. And for those of you who have missed your Hajj, may Allah accept your Hajj without you having gone there. And for those of you who are intending to go to Hajj in the future, remember, Hajj is not just a ritualistic tick box exercise. Hajj is about transformation of everything. Not just your thoughts, but your character, your behavior. May Allah accept it, inshallah. I'll finish here. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Ajmal, for that very informative talk. It goes to show how we cannot be disconnected from the life of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and we all have lessons to learn and reflect on. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah, thank you.
No problem. While people are thinking about questions, I'm going to take advantage of the time and announce a program that I'm doing for people who are interested. Is that okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
So in the next few days in summer, in the August month, we're doing 3 programs, and I'm going to put a link up on the chat room. I've just done that now. There is a link. It's called tickettailor.com events /barefoot. It's there. We've got 3 programs. One is a program for couples, married couples who are having trouble. If they want to learn about how to sustain a marital relationship and overcome their difficulties, it's going to be Saturday the 1st and Sunday the 2nd of August, a program for a couple of hours each day. The details are on that particular link. There is also a program called Islamic Summer School for Kids. It's going to be for the whole month of August, every day, Monday to Friday, between 10 and 12. Again, you can find more details. And then there is a very important program called 30 Rules of Life in the Light of the Quran. I had run this program in the month of Ramadan, and people who attended, they benefited. In fact, one non-Muslim who attended the entire program, on the 30th day of our program, he became Muslim. So it's a very important program, I believe, for your understanding and your relationship with the Quran. It's going to be done over 15 days because we're going to be 15 weeks actually. We're going to do 2 programs a week. So Wednesdays and Fridays in the evening, 7 to 8:30. If you want, the link is also on the same page. So I put up a link and you will see 3 programs. I recommend yourself, your family, so it's there for everybody, and share it with others. Please make a program successful. If you've got the time, join us, inshallah. And I would recommend our brothers and sisters organizing this event to kindly circulate this to their network. It's starting next weekend, the first course. And of course, the sooner we can let people know, the better it is.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. So I think we've come to the end of the Q&A session now. Before we wind this up, can I please use this opportunity to remind all Strive members to participate in the Da'wah initiative being rolled out this Eid. It's a simple initiative where all members are requested to wish Eid to their non-Muslim friends and neighbors with a greeting card, some food and some snacks and goodies. This could be a simple way of reaching out to hundreds of non-Muslim families collectively. Thereby we can introduce Islam to many non-Muslims in a new light, as opposed to the usual ones they're prone to seeing in the media. Posters will be sent out with details as reminders, so please watch the space. Jazakallah, Sheikh, for your time this afternoon and the very engaging session that you delivered. It was very inspiring. And Jazakallah to everyone who attended. Thank you for asking questions. We hope you have benefited from this session and pray that Allah accepts our intention and this gathering as a good deed and rewards us abundantly, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.